we're going to be solving equations. And like I said, you're going to have a quiz next, when?
Monday.
Next Friday. Today, we'll be solving addition, subtraction equations. You'll be practicing those again tomorrow. Then Friday, we'll focus on solving multiplication division equations and practicing those again Monday. And then we'll be solving two-step equations and reviewing for the quiz next week. So before we start, I want to talk about some vocabulary words. I would like you to write these on the bottom of your Lab 6 packets so you have them to refer back to whenever you need them. All right, the first one I want you to write is equation. I'm going to write them up here as well. Equation. The next one is solution. Our third one is solve. And then inverse. Those are 4 terms we're going to be using. Yes.
My pencil's like at 11, so
Okay, I don't have any left, so you're going to have to borrow a pencil from somebody because I don't have any of the left of the school.
Okay.
So you might ask if there's somebody that will loan you a pencil.
I'll borrow a pencil from somebody.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Okay. So equation. When you hear the word equation, what do you imagine? What do you see in your mind, Kathy?
Like, I see like a plus or something like that, or a time.
Okay, so you see some operations. Anything else, maybe, Grant?
A variable.
Maybe a variable. And what is this part right here telling you that it probably has?
Equal.
An equal sign. And that's exactly the type of equations we're going to be working with this week and next week. We have some operations, we have variables, and we have an equal sign. And of course, equations can be very simple, or they can be very, very complicated with lots and lots of steps in them. Like 3x minus 1 equals negative 2x plus 4. Some equations we can solve just by looking. We call that inspection. Other equations we have to have a better procedure for. We could probably look at this one and know how much x is worth.
7.
Can we look at this one and know how much x is worth?
No.
No. So what we're going to do is talk about those procedures. The definition of an equation is a sentence with an equal sign. Last week we practiced expressions. They did not have equal signs. They were just expressing something like x plus 2, 3x minus 1. And when you set one expression equal to another expression, then you call it an equation. A solution is the value, or as you progress through mathematics, there will be more than one sometimes, values that make the equation true. So you told me just a minute ago what the solution for this first one was. What was it? What was x on this one? 7. Because 7 plus 2 equals 9. Any number that makes it true is a solution. Most of them that we're going to solve, you'll just have one solution. But again, the longer the equations become, the more complicated they become, they can actually have more than one solution. To solve means find the value or the solution. So when we say solve the equation, it means figure out how much that variable is worth. What is x worth? That's what we're trying to do when we solve it. And again, sometimes we'll be able to do that just by looking, but we'll have to have a procedure when it isn't obvious, when it doesn't jump out at us. And that procedure is what we call the inverse, using inverse operations. What does the word inverse remind you of? Is there another word that's similar to inverse? Reverse, exactly. And in math, everything has what we call an inverse operation. So it is the opposite operation. What is the opposite of addition?
Subtraction.
Okay. What is the opposite of multiplication?
Division.
And so when we're looking at equations, we'll be identifying the operation that is there, and then we will be using the inverse operation. I have an analogy I like to use when I'm solving equations. I think of the variable as kind of like a present that's being wrapped up. So let's just imagine we have the variable x. You're going to wrap that up as a birthday gift. And who wouldn't want to get an X for their birthday, right?
Woo-hoo!
I know. How do you wrap a birthday gift? How do you wrap a present? What do you do?
Tape.
Okay, you have some tape involved.
Wrapping
paper. You might put it in
Box, I just got that, that's all.
You might put it in a box. Sometimes you put a bow. Okay. So let's imagine we put it in a box. So that's one step. And then we cover that box with paper, tape it up, right? And then we add a bow to it. So there are lots of layers on top of that present. If you want to get back to the present, what do you have to do? And don't you unwrap it in the reverse order of the person wrapping it? So first thing you would take off is the ribbon. And the next thing you would take off is the wrapping paper. Eventually, then, you would take off the box. And again, the tape's coming off with that. And you get down to what you started with. That's how we approach an equation. It's been wrapped up. The x has been wrapped up with all these other numbers and symbols and variables. And we have to unwrap all those layers. The unwrapping is the idea of the inverse operation. We're going to see how to do that with Algeblocks. Somebody, do you have a question? Okay. So the first thing I want you to notice is that new mat that you have in front of you. Yesterday and the day before, we spent a lot of time working with this positive-negative mat. And now in front of you, you have two positive-negative mats. And what's in between it? An equal sign. And then at the bottom, you have this little symbol that looks like this to represent what?
Scale.
Why do you think we use a scale to represent an equation? Shelby?
Balance.
It's all about balance. What does equal mean?
Balance.
Balance. So when we are looking at an equation, we're going to think of that as a balanced item. The left side balances the right side. And everything has to keep its balance. Repeat that. Everything has to
have its balance.
Keep its balance. All right. So lab 6-1. Please turn to 6-1 in your packet. It begins by saying an equation is a little like a balance scale. I think it's more than a little. An equation is exactly like a balance scale. It's all about the balance. The two sides of an equation must equal the same number. The scale on the sentences mat shows this equality. So this is going to represent the left side of our equation and the right side of our equation. On our first page, we're just practicing setting up our equation. So let's look at the example.